Okay, good morning, everybody.
We'd still be married.
All right, good morning. Lorraine, we're gonna get started.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Wednesday, July 8th, 2026 TransNet Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee. And before we get started, I would like to ask our interpreter to walk through how to access our interpretation services for today's meeting. Please proceed.
Good morning. Announcement from the interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon, world, and select English as your language. If you are joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish flow in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you're in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Buenos días. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, globo terráqueo y seleccione Spanish. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of San Diego region have historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples, who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systematic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States. From our cultural groups, the Kumeyaay, the Gueño, the Luiseño, the Cupeño, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, and protected and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from the indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Now, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will now ask our clerk to confirm that we have a quorum with a roll call for attendance. Clerk, please confirm.
Thank you, Chair. For Biology Environmental Science category, Lorraine Alquist.
Present.
For Contractor Construction, Jacqueline Appleton Dean. Oh, I'm sorry, Jacqueline is absent today. Municipal Public Finance and Budgeting is also absent. For Private Sector CEO, Sunny House.
Here.
For Licensed Civil Traffic Engineer, Chair Rivera.
Present.
For Real Estate Land Economics Right of Way, David Santisteven.
Present.
And the licensed engineer is also absent. We do have a quorum this morning.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome to the July 8th Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee meeting. I would like to thank staff for their efforts to pull this meeting together, and a thank you to everyone on the phone and web for taking the time to join us today. Let's quickly talk about how this meeting will work. We will take in-person public comments, followed by virtual public comments. If you're a member of the public here in the room, please submit a speaker slip to the clerk. For those virtual, please continue to raise your virtual hands at the right time. I want to make sure everyone knows that public participation is possible in person and via Zoom as well. Sounds good? Great. Then let's get started. So now we're going to item number 2, public comments, communications, member comments. Members of the public shall have the opportunity to address the Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee on any issue within the jurisdiction of the ITAC that is not on this agenda. Public speakers are limited to 3 minutes or less per person. Public comments under this agenda item will be limited to 5 public speakers. If the number of public comments under this agenda item exceeds 5, additional public comments will be taken at the end of the agenda. ITALK members and staff leadership also may provide brief updates and announcements under this agenda item. Clerk, are there any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We do have 2 public commenters in the room. If you're online and you'd like to speak, please raise your hand now. We'll start with Purita Javier and then Cesar Javier.
You may begin when ready. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Thank you, SANDAG. I am Purita Javier, victim of your remix. Okay. Home business toxicity in a residential zone community located, constructed, and operated since 1984. We are hurt and we lived in fear for 5 years. That elevated 11 city officials ignored and neglected our community concerns under Consuelo Rivera. Number 1, ceramics kiln toxicity. Number 2, fast morning traffic. Number 3, continuing watch alert on on home invasion, 14 cases. Number 4, Choya's Creek, Choya's Creek, Mosquito, Victor, and 5 Choya's Parkway, Car, and Pothole. Number 6, City Heights, Parkway, cracks, and potholes. Number 6, City Heights Public Garden, New Roots Project of Mrs. Obama, mismanaged waste of resources such as water and labor versus standard expected production. Number 7, city road property connected Boise Street to Altadena.
Thank you very much. Your time has expired. Our next speaker will be Cesar Javier.
We are the real-time victims of community sustainability resilience. We are residents of economically disadvantaged community, if we may describe it. Choya's Creek alone. By the way, we're very thankful we have a biologist, environmentalist member of these great thinkers. And precisely, we are on the right spot. We are the frontliners, and you owe to understand, you owe to investigate, you owe to solve this. We are on the right jurisdiction because we aim at, focus at survivability of humans. We know it, urban planning, centerpiece is man, his shelter. health and safety to be specific. What are these physical development for? Is it just for literature or just patrimony or just some tale or legend? No, sir. No, ma'am. This is all about survivability of humans, Sandiegans, to be specific. We have 9. And this concerns us primordially because it is all about health and safety. Toxicity in a residential zone is unacceptable, Sir Mario. For 5 years, we had voicing this from the very root, community planning group. And what this planning group is for? For campaigning, advancement of the political careers of our elected officials. They ignored it. They neglected it, like what is happening to the 1993 crisis, Tijuana pollution. We know it. Everybody knows it. But elected officials are quiet and possibly do not want. In short, they just ignore it, neglected it. Past tense. Why, Sir Mario? Why, Mr. Chair? Why, environmentalist expert? This is the big challenge for all of us. Superior Court offices are right there, and they're hearing us. Like our case, we're trying to protect and defend ourselves, and yet we are being punished.
Thank you very much. Your time has expired. That concludes the public comments.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, are there any member comments? Seeing none, okay. All right, I would ask SANDAG's Chief Executive Officer, Mario Orso, if there are any agency updates.
Thank you. Yeah, we have several, starting with some pretty good news. We have previously gotten an upgrading in one of our bonds. Now we got another upgrade from AA- to A+ by Fitch Ratings. Like I said, this is the second upgrade in ratings this year. So that's very good news. Regarding the state budget was passed. There is still some discussions of the cap and invest funding, and this is very important for like transit that we're using it. So there is ongoing conversations on it. The project updates, I think CTC on their last meeting took some very important actions. One, they allowed an additional funding source, and 2, allowed to couple the funds all together that were for cargo facilities and passenger vehicles facilities to focus it to the passenger vehicle facilities that would allow us to begin the construction, secure basically the full amount of the construction costs for northbound passenger vehicles. And it would allow us to fully focus on that portion of the project, the buildings, the inspections, the non-intrusive equipment for CBP, Customs and Border Protection. It's a huge decision that the CTC allowed us to do that. That basically secures most probably a port of entry opening of the phase approach by late 28, early 2029. And that would also allow us to set a baseline for bonding for the future phases. So that's humongous. The CTC also took action on the San Dieguito double track and platform project at the Del Mar Fairgrounds, allocated quite a bit of money and allow us to do some swaps. Also in the state budget, there was some funding that was going to expire next year for rail for the Lausanne corridor. And the budget actually had specific language extending 5 more years on that funding. So those are huge wins for the agency. And an interesting point that the California Transportation Commission will be meeting next month here in this room. So this is where the next meeting is going to be. Something very important that it's under your prelude is the TransNet Active Transportation Grant Program. There were about $8 million that have been cobbled into that program, and we're going to combine it. The board approved the combining those 8 million with the 22.5 million that the state ATP program, Active Transportation Program, makes available for the region. So we put it out for grants. So the board approved the guidelines for the grants, both for the 22.5 million for the state and the 8 million from the TransNet program. So I'm pretty sure the staff will be providing an update on this in the coming meetings. That pretty much sums up my summary that I had for iTalk.
All right. Thank you, Mario. Any other comments from members?
Just a question. Great job on the AAA rating, but like bonds that are maturing from 2016, I mean, if you have to reissue those, is that a win? I mean, are the rates better today than they were 10 years ago?
Yeah, and it's not just the rates. Usually when we structure a bond issuance and we have like a 10-year par call, the structure of that bond issuance makes it very advantageous to actually call the bonds at the 10-year mark. Within about 2 years after that mark, you've basically lost all the premium you received when you sold the bonds. So there's actually a penalty, like a kick that happens about 2 years later if you haven't done the refunding. Of course, market conditions really can have an impact, but in our case, like in January this year, January, February, the market conditions had an even more favorable outcome for us with greater savings. But yes, when you structure with a call date, investors are expecting that the bonds will be called, and generally we sell our bonds at a premium.
Yeah, and I just, it's not a TransNet funding, but most probably the next refinancing will be the 125 bonds they have a call date on 2027. So that's going to be the opportunity to do that refinancing. But having the agency's overall ratings getting improved is going to trickle down on the 125 refinancing.
Yeah, the lien that was most recently updated was our junior subordinate lien. That's where our big federal TIFIA loan for the Midcoast project sits. So it's our third level lien that we do not anticipate ever refunding. It is at 1.75% for $500 million.
Yeah. All right. Any other member comments? Sunny.
I have a question for Mario. Mario, can you give us maybe a bigger picture of the port of entry? What's the total cost and how many phases is it going to be? I know it's your favorite project.
Know that in your sleep.
Oh my God, phases. Actually, we were talking about because at the board meeting, the team is coming to move with the next package, which is the buildings for the passenger vehicle facilities. I don't really know how many packages are going to be coming out because it's such a moving situation because some people want to help us. Different conditions happen that it may be that funding may become available early on. But if you look at in three chunks, the port of entry, the first is the middle chunk, which is the passenger vehicle facility northbound. That is the first part of it. And then you have the two sides, which is the southbound facilities and the northbound cargo. So those will be the next phases that we need to fund. Mm-hmm. The most expensive is probably the cargo facility. Yeah. It probably is in the realm of $400 million to $500 million. And depending when we get to finance it and lock the prices they keep going, the escalation rates. But overall, that's, I would say, passenger vehicles, it's going to be coming out. It's a CMGC contract. So it's coming in different packages, but that is one of the, let's say, elements to deliver passenger vehicles northbound. Southbound, both cargo and passenger vehicles, which are the leanest facility, less cost, and northbound cargo. Now, why did we do passengers first? Because that represents between 58 to 60% of the total revenues projected for the facility, because this is port of entry is going to be tolled and variable tolled. In the projection, the traffic and revenue study tells us that's about, let's call it around 60%, a little bit less potentially, of the total revenues will come for passenger vehicles. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and do you know what the cost of the PV, the passenger vehicle facility is?
The total cost right now for the entire project is around 1.4 billion. I wouldn't be surprised that it goes to 1.6 in the future with escalations. The PVs, I'm talking off my head here. I don't know if Don will correct me. Wasn't it about 300 million, the passenger vehicles northbound?
I believe so.
Yeah,
Okay.
about 300 million, which is what we were, in round numbers, what the CTC allowed us to allocate to move to fully deliver passenger vehicles northbound.
Nice. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. There's no other member comments, then thank you, Mario, for your presentation. Okay, so moving on to consent agenda, we have items number 3.1, approval of the meeting minutes, 3.2, the FY proposed TransNet agreed upon procedures, and 3.3, the TransNet Smart Growth Incentive Program project amendments requiring an action. Are there any members that want to pull an item?
I have some questions on 3.3, so.
Okay, so we'll pull item 3.3. There's no other comments, then
Is 3.2 going to be,
3.2 is
Okay.
approved.
were they going to pull it? Was it?
I think we're fine unless you want to see a presentation?
No, it's fine. I thought. it was
Okay,
gonna-
it's on consent.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so if no further comments, can I have a motion to approve item 3.1 of the consent agenda, which is the meeting minutes?
I'll have a motion to approve.
Okay, motion's been made by member Alquist. Oh, are there any public comments?
Yes, thank you. We do have public comments.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead with the public comments.
If you're online and you'd like to speak on the consent agenda, please raise your hand now. Cesar Javier, you can go ahead.
Sir Mario, Sir Chair, we are not paid. Nobody supports us to come here to share with you our community concern. A jurisdiction somewhat very clear before, earlier, we have been discussing about community sustainability. And something is missing in these minutes. You know, we wanted our presence here. Cesar and Purita, representing our community of 77 signatories. We want to have that historical description of our presence. Please, Sir Chair, Sir Mario, a simple English word, Cesar, Purita, sharing our community concern. It's not in the minutes. 3.2, we do not understand the simplest explanation on these agreed upon procedures, not until we have the ability and opportunity to read the literature, the stick, as well as 3.3. My visual or X-ray capability is why is the city applied for funding from SANDAG when SANDAG is for mobility and transportation, and they're gearing up for the Green Park project. I do not see the validity here. Mobility, transportation, and this is a money to be spent for the development of particular acreage for parks. We know well what is parks. And it reminds us, Councilor Rivera had 3 large chunks of money before the election 2024, allegedly for parks improvement. We haven't seen it. We haven't felt it. It is out of topic, yes, but it's an example to put weight on our suspicion. Public trust, in short. We speak here not to compete.
Thank you. Your time has expired. That concludes the public comments on consent.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, your time has expired. All right, so I've seen a motion for from Member Alquist for the meeting minutes. Any second? Alquist, Lauren.
I second.
Seconded by House. Okay, any other questions? If not, roll call vote.
Thank you. For biology, environmental science, Lorraine Alquist.
Approve.
For contractor construction is absent, as well as municipal public finance and budgeting. For private sector CEO, Sunny House.
Approved.
For licensed civil traffic engineer, Chair Rivera.
Approve.
For real estate, land economics, right of way, David Santisteven.
Approve.
And licensed engineer is absent. That motion does pass unanimously with those members present.
All right, thank you. Now, can I have a motion to approve item 3.2 of the consent calendar?
I move to approve.
Okay, motion's been made by House,
Second.
seconded by Santisteven. Any questions?
I'm sorry, Chair, just to clarify, we're taking each item on consent separately?
Yeah,
What was the?
yeah, because we've pulled
What
item
was
3.3.
To approve the minutes.
Just the
So,
minutes.
yeah,
Okay.
right, 3.1 are just the minutes, and so this one is the remainder one, which is the 3.2, the agreed upon procedures.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay.
So on item 3.2 for biology, environmental science, Lorraine Alquist.
Approve.
Contractor construction and municipal public finance and budgeting are both absent. For private sector CEO, Sunny House.
Approved.
For licensed civil traffic engineer, Chair Rivera.
Approve.
For real estate, land economics, right of way, David Santisteven.
Approve.
And licensed engineer is absent. That motion also passes unanimously with those members present.
All right, okay. Member House, you have comments on 3.3, TransNet Smart Growth Incentive Project Amendment.
Yes. So, good morning, Jenny. There wasn't a lot of information here. There were no letters from anybody. So I'm just curious. This just seemed like it's already been extended twice. So I hopefully could expect a little bit more definition of why we're extending, especially if it's almost complete. Why are we asking for a whole year? And also, if it's already been extended twice, it must have come to ITALK before?
Yes.
Okay, there was no mention of that. It says it was approved by planning committee. So just need a little bit more explanation of why we're doing this 3 times.
Sure. So this project is in East Village. So if you guys leave this meeting and you head out by 94, you can't miss it. It's right there before. The project is substantially complete. Typically, we would close it at this stage. The challenge is that our board policy that governs the grant programs, Board Policy 35, requires that the facility be open to the public and that a notice of completion be issued to the construction contractor. So that's the part that's hanging this up. They will be finished by the current completion date, which is the middle of August.
Okay.
and Civic San Diego, who is working on the construction portion of the project. They're overseeing it on behalf of the city. They will be turning it over to the city by that date. But then it goes into the city's hands to staff it, hold, a grand opening ceremony and have it open to the public. That's the piece that's not known right now. So it's staff that's recommending that we extend this for a year so that that project can complete and it can be actually open to the public. If we closed it today, it's not open. It doesn't look good that we've paid for a facility that isn't there. So that's the reason there's no letter like you're used to seeing on the other amendments, is we want to make sure that last piece is completed and the public can benefit from the project.
Okay, so let's say we give an extension and it's going to be completed. Are you saying you'll have notice of completion by what date?
So the notice of substantial completion will be by August.
Okay.
But it's that final piece, the punch list items, that's what we're waiting for. We don't think it's going to take a year, but we didn't want to come back here multiple times in case something gets stuck on that piece of it.
Okay. That's what my question is. It doesn't take 11 months to have an grand opening. So why should I grant a 11-month extension where maybe this will hopefully get the city to move a little faster and get it done in 6 months or something like that, or sooner?
I think we just don't know because they have to staff that facility, and with budget constraints, we're not really sure what that would look like. I'm not sure if the city knows that or not. I know city staff is online. Civic is here. Daniel's here. He may be able to shed a little bit more light on what's happening on the city side of it.
Okay. So notice of substantial completion is, let's say, issued next month. Are you telling me people cannot use that park until the grand opening happens? So it's going to sit there for the community to look at every day without being able to use it? Maybe you can shed some light on that.
Jenny's doing great. She answered all the questions perfectly. Daniel Kay was Civic Communities, but representing Civic San Diego, as Jenny mentioned. And everything she said is absolutely correct. We're at the mercy of the city's ability to staff the park upon completion of the construction. Any help from you guys would be great to talk to the city and Parks and Rec to do that. As you know, the city does have budgetary concerns for FY27. So we are earnestly working with them to get that specific date. They just have not provided it to us yet. But as Jenny mentioned, construction-wise, we will be done by August.
Okay. Can the city representative tell us if the park is just going to sit there without being open to public for another year or sooner, hopefully? What's going to happen to the park? That's what I'm questioning. You paid all this money and they spent all this time.
I think that's something that we need to discuss with the city.
Yeah.
You don't have a city rep here.
No, we don't.
With such a substantial investment, I'm pretty sure that all the players are invested to keep it in a well manner of the investment. The mayor is very active in making sure those stewardships happens. I don't think you're going to get an answer right now because there's not a city rep here. But I think we all take our job seriously to, make sure that followed through.
So can we get a response later to the members of ITALK for us to know what's going to happen?
Yeah, we can.
I'm not inclined to accept the full year extension. If this can be done in 6 months or something like that, I'm more inclined to approve that than a year. So that's just my opinion.
Okay. Can I ask a question for Jenny? Jenny, the 12-month extension, is it creating a expense within TransNet?
No. So we have about 17,000 that's being held in contingency that would be released.
That's all that's left?
That's all that's left.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an $84 million project. Our piece is less than 1% of the overall project cost. It's very small.
So I do want to kind of put things in perspective, right? ITALK is the steward of the TransNet funds. that has been done, the stewardship, the management that's going to fall with that entity. And what we're doing is the 12 months it's a no impact to the program. It's just making sure that things line up. When you have a project of this magnitude, things have to line up to get it moving. So I want to put it in perspective, right? It's done, it's finished. This is more a administrative exercise that it's not impacting the program, which is the realm of this committee, which is the stewardship of the program. So I want to put it in that perspective.
All right. A comment I have regarding the TransNet funds. The project was about 4.6 million, and $1 million of it was a TransNet grant. And so the TransNet dollars were mostly used for construction, and how long ago was those expenses reimbursed?
So we actually made some shifts to that project during its development. So the original cost, this is from 2018, so it's almost 10 years ago when that submittal was put in. As you saw in that amended schedule, that attachment 1, it talks about it being a $4.6 million project. It's 84 million today. What was scoped into here was just the portion that they saw relative to what TransNet would be funding. So it's actually a lot larger than that. We've paid we've waited until they had done most of the construction completion before we paid our $1 million. We didn't want to pay $1 million years ago and then be waiting for all of this, the remainder of it to be constructed. So the piece we're holding is very minimal compared to the overall value of what that project costs.
Okay. All right. I understand Member House's concerns about that. Do we have any other member comments? Go ahead, David.
Jenny, I have a question. Once you're open, what's the annual operating budget approximately to keep it going every year?
For this project?
For the park, yeah.
I don't know that we know that.
I would have to circle back with the city. I believe it is on their CIP project pages that have been published for the recent budget, but I don't know the number off the top of my head.
But we can get that information.
Yeah, we can get that back to you.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see, maybe the grand opening be noticed as soon as possible, because we have an asset that needs to be used by the public. And so I'm sharing the concerns from our member here about the 12-month extension.
It's just there's no commitment. I don't want to punish Civic San Diego for getting their money or closing this out. So I move to go ahead and give the extension, but we would really like to get some accountability from City of San Diego for use of this money to give back to the community of San Diego and get this park open sooner than later. So I move to approve the 1 year.
Okay, and I'll second that motion. All right, so I have a motion from Member House and a second by Rivera. If there's no other questions, then Clerk, may I call for a vote?
Thank you, Chair. For Biology, Environmental Science, Lorraine Alquist.
Approve.
Contractor Construction and Municipal Public Finance and Budgeting categories are both absent. For Private Sector CEO, Sunny House.
Approved.
For Licensed Civil Traffic Engineer, Chair Rivera.
Approve.
For Real Estate Land Economics Right of Way, David Santis-Stephen.
Approve.
And Licensed Engineer is absent. That motion passes unanimously with those members present.
All right, thank you very much. Now, moving on to the report items. Number 4, the 2025 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, Amendment number 19, presented by Richard Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, iTalk members. So item 4 is amendment number 19 to the 2025 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, or RTIP. And on July 24th, the SANDAG Board of Directors is expected to approve Amendment 19. Today, the iTalk is asked to provide feedback on the proposed amendment, focusing its review on the TransNet funded projects. Amendment 19 is a regular quarterly RTIP amendment that is being processed to accommodate changes to projects that were requested by SANDAG, Caltrans, some local agencies, as well as MTS and NCTD. Attachment 1, beginning on page 42 of today's agenda, is the Summary of Changes report, which shows prior and revised project cost, the cost difference, and the percent change in each project. The table has been sorted in descending order by the absolute value of the change in dollars. Some key changes in this amendment include the alignment of various projects with the fiscal year 2027 SANDAG program budget that was approved by the SANDAG board on May 8th, 2026, and also some changes by several agencies that were revising their TransNet programming based on their respective council-approved budgets. In attachment 2, beginning on page 47 of the agenda, you will find the changes proposed in this amendment in more detail, specifically for the projects funded with TransNet. Each project table shows TransNet funding at the top of the funding section, followed by any other funding that is programmed on the project. The tables also show TransNet subtotals and other funding subtotals to show you how much TransNet and how much other funds are programmed. And then attachment 3 is the TransNet eligibility analysis for Amendment 19. At the request of the ITALC, staff has reviewed the proposed project amendments included in Amendment number 19 and considered changes to be consistent with the TransNet ordinance. That concludes my report on this amendment, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
All right, thank you. I appreciate attachment 3. That's very helpful. And do I have any member comments for this item? Any questions or comments for Richard? Do you have any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We do have one public comment. Cesar Javier.
Okay, Mr. Javier, go ahead.
Respectfully, we will not take hold of the journey towards changes for good. As an observer, we do not have the grasp of what really is going on here. Funded projects review. From that point of research or investigation to this particular moment, what performance or fiduciary matters have been observed as a lesson? Sir Chair, could you give the public 1 or 2 or 3 lessons from here? Have we wasted money for this? That's why we have some changes? Well and good. Tell us. Transparency, public trust require this. And we wish that we will be learning from it. We have been attending at the county, which has the same mission, mobility transportation, with the same mission to investigate, review, and find out performance fiduciary-wise. Let us learn from these thinkers, because the greatest resource we know is public trust from the taxpayer's point of view. And we are missing it. And that's what we would like to voice whenever we are here with you. Transparency, accountability, the very muscle, very flesh of what we call governance, the processes, and pinpoint who is responsible, accountable for all this. Taxpayers need to know this. Taxpayers must be satisfied with what we are doing, the processes that is already set up in our constitution.
Thank you very much. Your time has expired. That concludes the public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Javier. Do we have any member comments? Any other public comments, clerk?
No, that's all the public comments.
Okay,
Thank you.
Member House.
Richard, I just have a procedural question. So when you move money around from one project to another, what happens to the projects that lose the TransNet funds if they're not replaced by other sources of funds? Do they just get delayed, or how does that all work? Like you have, I'm sorry, you have like 12.5 million increase in TransNet for SR 11. So what happened? Where, I know where it comes from, but how does that impact other projects?
So typically what happens if a project will no longer, well, if at the time that we're amending the RTIP and the project is not expected to have funding going forward, we'll typically mark it as complete. If we can not reasonably assume that there's going to be funding added to the project. If there will be funding, we just haven't really identified it yet in the future, then we might mark it delayed. We typically don't delete records from the RTIP unless it's like a duplicated project that was created by accident or something. But typically, we will move funding between the projects, and then usually there's more than just TransNet programmed on the projects. So again, if the time comes and there's no funding, then we'll try to limit its exposure in the tip by marking it as completed. Sorry, go ahead, Don.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, so Sunny, I mean, you're asking a very good question, but you know, we're looking at an entire program of projects, right? And so one of our strategies is always to continue to look for other people's money first. So sometimes money that's being moved has become available because we've put a different funding source or another color of money on the project. Sometimes it's because it was savings of a project that's closing out. So there's a multitude of reasons, but we're continuously looking at the full program of projects, our existing TransNet, you know, balances and our revenue forecast going forward, because our capital program covers a 10-year period. So, and thankfully, we're still a pretty healthy program, even though we're not debt financing future work. So what is happening in a lot of cases now is some success in receiving other people's money, or things like finally getting, you know, the remainder of federal funds for the federal fiscal year. And it, like in the case of FTA funds and a few of our apportionments, once they give us a new amount of funds, we can program those, and it frees up the TransNet to go to other projects. That is probably more typically what is happening besides just projects closing out. Because the delegations to Mario are such that I can't move money. I don't have any ability to move the money between the projects if it is going to cause any kind of significant true delay. For that, we would need to, you know, do it in an annual budget cycle and disclose schedule updates to the board.
Awesome. Thank you. That's really good explanation. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Don.
All right, and also to answer the questions raised by Mr. Javier, on attachment 2, which is a very good summary of what has happened with this report, you'll see on the upper portion of each page the project listed with its MPO ID number. And in that shaded portion towards the bottom of it, it'll say change reason. And so you can see where it says increase funding, revise funding between fiscal years, decrease funding, revise the fund source, revise the funding between fiscal years. And so all the explanations are there for the public to see project by project. But what's happening is each agency, like in the attachment 2, the first one listed is Caltrans, they would work with SANDAG staff to kind of look at all the projects they have with funding that needs changes to be made, and work with SANDAG to make those changes happen. I did that for Chula Vista, and we would have a dozen or 2 dozen of those projects funded with TransNet. And as we had lower bids or projects closed out, as was mentioned, we were able to move TransNet funds around, and you'd see the Chula Vista projects listed up here and the reasons why the funding needed to be revised. So it's all there. It is a lot of reading, but just go to the attachment 2 and the top portion. You'll see what's happening in there with the changes in bold. So that's very helpful, and it's something that it does take some getting used to, but I've had a lot of experience in working with these RTIP amendments. So if there are no other questions on this item, is there a motion to, this is discussion. Go back here. This is a discussion item. Okay, well, thank you, Richard.
Mhm.
Okay, so now moving on to item number 5, draft 2027 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, including the draft air quality conformity determination presentation by Richard. Go ahead, Richard.
Thank you again, Chair. So, okay, so this is the item for the draft 2027 RTIP, which is the update to the Regional Transportation Improvement Program that we do every 2 years. So some background here, SANDAG, serving as the region's Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, is required by state and federal laws to develop and adopt a Regional Transportation Improvement Program, or RTIP. The RTIP is a multi-year program of proposed major transportation projects, which includes the TransNet program of projects. To reduce the number of pages in today's agenda, a link was provided to the public-facing RTIP database, which you can use to view the projects in the entire draft project list for the 2027 RTIP. We've included a listing of the TransNet funded projects in the draft 2027 RTIP as an attachment today. The draft 2027 RTIP document will be posted in its entirety on the RTIP webpage following approval from the board to release the draft for public comment. Attachment 1 provides a summary of the funding for projects that are included in the draft 2027 RTIP, organized by category to show how the region is investing available funds. This table has been organized by corridor, and investments are shown by fund source as federal, state, TransNet, and local. And please note that this attachment includes all projects that are programmed in the 2027 RTIP, not just the TransNet funded projects. Policymakers historically have been interested in the split of the funding investments by mode. So attachment 1 also includes 2 pie charts, one for the total RTIP funding that's programmed, including the prior years, and one for just the 5 years of the 2027 RTIP, covering fiscal years 2027 through 2031. These pie charts illustrate how the funds are being invested per transportation mode that include highway, multimodal, transit, biped, and maintenance. Attachment 2 summarizes the eligibility requirements for projects to use TransNet funding. Staff has reviewed the projects contained in the draft 2027 RTIP and found that the projects are eligible for TransNet. And attachment 3 includes, like I mentioned, the draft list of all the TransNet funded projects in the draft 27 RTIP. Today, the ITALC is asked to review the projects included in the draft 2027 RTIP, focusing on the TransNet program of projects, including compliance with the ordinance and requirements of SANDAG Board Policy number 31. Any significant comments received from members of this group will be brought to the Transportation Committee on July 17th. And pending the Transportation Committee's recommendation, the Board of Directors will be asked to approve the release of the draft 2027 RTIP for a 30-day public review and comment period at its meeting on July 24th, 2026. A public hearing is scheduled for the September 18th, 2026 Transportation Committee meeting to receive public testimony on the proposed final 2027 RTIP. The final 2027 RTIP is due to the state by September 30th, 2026, with federal approval expected sometime around December 16th, 2026. And that concludes my report on this item. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Richard. Now, Clerk, are there any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We do have one public comment. Cesar Javier.
Go ahead, Mr. Javier.
Thank you, SANDAG. Hopeful, prayerfully that the time or period for review and analysis would provide us a clear direction of this program. Repetitively, I would say mobility transportation. Our presentation is very clear, and behind it is something that is cloudy. It being on the aspect of funding our money. Taxpayers' money, public money, being programmed, managed to implement projects is something very challenging on the part of the players and challenging on the part of the public who has a stake on it to understand. The word simplicity is one of the elements in public delivery of good. How simple was it? We observe that even members of the thinkers are also in quandary, in big question marks, as we heard the substance of that query. We observe you, we learn from you, and please learn from us how simple to justify the expense of this resource, money, materials, time, labor. Money is the key here, but we seem to forget the other resources that we should also try to try to calculate, try to research on it.
Thank you. Your time has expired. That concludes the public comments on this item.
All right, thank you, thank you. All right, there's no other further comments. No questions from members? Your mic. David, go ahead.
I have a random question about transportation fees. You know, the development industry and building permit pays transportation fee. Along the 56 highway, you just increased transportation fees to $45,000 per house. Does that money go to TransNet? Where does that money go?
That funding does not go to TransNet. I believe that would be under the RTCIP funding.
Yeah, development impact fees are a local contribution to any project. So
Right.
the local agency is going to have the report that justifies the fee and then the list of projects. And so they have the ability to then schedule the projects when they have sufficient funding.
But who holds the money?
The local agencies.
So City of San Diego.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they determine what to do with those funds. It doesn't go to you. Okay.
No, but what you'll see is like with the RTIP programs, the projects that we have here, there may be some that'll have maybe an RTCIP component.
Mhm.
Or it may be as a local match that the local agency is putting RTCIP and maybe some other general fund money or whatever as a contribution to a particular transportation project. Yeah. All right. Thank you. And thank you for attachment 2. I really like attachment 2 because it really kind of shows the process that we go through to make sure that the projects are TransNet eligible. It's very helpful. There are no other comments from our members. Okay, well, thank you. Those for discussion purposes. Thank you, Richard. Okay, so now let's move on to item number 6, the draft 2027 TransNet Local Street and Road Output and Outcome Report. Richard.
Thank you again, Chair. I'm sure you guys are sick of seeing me now.
Oh, I just made sure I was on the right item.
This is my last one of my 3 today. So this item is one that we prepare, this report we prepare every 2 years with an RTIP update, and this is one that only this committee sees. So some background here, in 2015 in the TransNet performance audit, recommendation number 6 was made, stating to expand on existing available local street and road performance output data to report and summarize on improvements made to the local streets and roads network. So SANDAG staff working at that time with the Cities County Transportation Advisory Committee, or CTAC, developed a proposed format and began collecting data in the RTIP database project track on the planned outputs and proposed outcomes for the TransNet projects with each RTIP. This report is then provided with every 2-year RTIP update and has been since the 2016 RTIP. Again, we prepare this report every 2 years and only when we perform an update to the RTIP. And when entering their projects for the 2027 RTIP update, the local agencies were asked to update their proposed outputs and outcomes for the outputs. It would be the first 2 years of the 27 RTIP, which are fiscal years 2027 and 2028. And for the outcomes, it would be fiscal years 2029 through 2031. This report summarizes those proposed outputs for the categories of congestion relief and maintenance as defined in Board Policy number 31, as well as the outcomes of those efforts. Page 8 of this report for this item, on page 266 of the agenda, is a summary of all the outputs and outcomes. And it shows that about 81%, just under 82% of the planned local street and road programming for the next 2 years will benefit congestion relief efforts with TransNet dollars. Then page 3 of the report on page 261 of the agenda will provide more detailed information for the congestion relief projects, including the number of projects per category, the amount of TransNet and other funds programmed on those projects, and the proposed output, which varies depending on the type of improvement. The same information is shown for maintenance projects beginning on page 6 of this report or page 264 of the agenda. And that concludes my report on this item.
All right, thank you. Clerk, are there any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We do have a public comment. Cesar Javier, you can go ahead.
Curiosity. City of San Diego local road projects or street projects. This is our observation, Sir Mario, Sir Chair. When we look at our street, meaning interior city of San Diego, we see and we wish that it's not only the structure, meaning the road pavements, the width, the thickness, the aesthetics of it, but rather more on functionality. We see heavy trucks passing over like Home Depot, trailer truck, loading heavyweight commodities, stores, whatever. It doesn't match on the engineering side, design side. How could we explain this? Investigators. Our money is wasted. On some other front, oh, we need water. Water is a scarce commodity. How could we reconcile conserving or even collecting precious water on these surfaces. Look at our drainage system, engineering, structural design, Engineer Rivera, sir. We have mentioned this, to unclog, this drainage would be very costly at the long run. These are the things that we have to see along with just circulation. But the design, the materials, look at our community. Have you seen how they pave our road there? The asphalt is just like a paste powder. The fine or coarse aggregates are on the surface instead of these asphalt materials. How could you explain that, engineer? Come and see our community. I think that's the best way to investigate, not just from the feedback of our elected officials and their staff.
Thank you. Your time has expired. That concludes the public comments.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any member comments on this item? Okay, I do have comments, Richard. On page 266, where you have the congestion relief outputs, I just want to make sure the units are correct. Where it says total miles of roadway, is that centerline miles or lane miles? And then for going down a couple of lines, total feet of sidewalk, if that's square feet of sidewalk or lineal feet of sidewalk, and it would be the same for the units for medians, total lineal feet of medians or total square feet of medians. I know the numbers there are the dollars that have been spent on it, but just so that, the total feet or the units that are consistent, that how we report them in, because I thought we reported sidewalks by square footage and roadway by lane miles, but I don't see that here as the units. But maybe just for moving for future reference to make sure that it's consistent with the way that's reported by the local agencies.
Hi, good morning. I'm Michelle Smith, Manager of Financial Programming. So this is kind of where we've been stuck since we've started this. Every city represents data in a different way.
Okay.
So it's not uniform across all cities, which is why we went to this kind of
dollars.
So it is kind of a nuance where one city may report in linear miles, one may report in lane miles. Same with feet. So we are working to see if we can get a uniform reporting. But as of right now, there's not.
I remember that discussion. Yeah, thank you. All right. No, that was it. Okay, well, this is for discussion purposes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so now moving on to item number 7, Specialized Transportation Grant Program, Cycle 14, Call for Projects, presented by Ali Vasquez.
Good morning, ITALK members. My name's Ali Vasquez. I'm the program manager, rather, for the Specialized Transportation Grant Program at SANDAG. So first things first, what is the Specialized Transportation Grant Program? The STGP funds projects and programs that improve mobility for older adults and individuals with disabilities when fixed route public transit is insufficient, unavailable, or inappropriate. The funding for the STGP comes from 2 sources: the Federal Transit Administration's Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Section 5310 program and the TransNet Senior Mini Grant Program, which is why I'm here today. The eligible applicants for the SCGP include nonprofit organizations as well as local government agencies. There we go. So we are starting off our next cycle of funding to date, the senior mini grant alone has awarded over 27 million across various various funding cycles. And for cycle 14, we estimate that we have about 7.1 million available to award. One change from the previous cycle that is important to note is that we plan to distribute 3 years worth of funding instead of 2. And the purpose of that is just to promote some more sustainability for the providers by making the grants last longer from 2 years to 3 years. And the TransNet Senior Mini Grant can fund transportation services for older adults, and older adults are defined as 60 and older. And these grants can provide transportation services throughout the county. We have 3 eligible grant types through the SCGP. We have mobility management, which can fund a service like having travel trainings to teach folks how to ride fixed route. We also have operating grants, and that could be mileage reimbursement for trips for seniors, and then volunteer driver programs. And then there's also capital grants, which can include transportation services that are paid through a contract lease or other arrangement. So now I'd like to highlight some changes that we have from previous cycles for SMG. For cycle 14, we plan to change the eligibility criteria to allow for capital service projects for both the FTA 5310 and the SMG funding sources. I wanted to highlight this for you all because this is something that's different from the previous cycle. For the previous cycle, we had only allowed that for 5310. But this is a capital service project is in alignment with the TransNet extension ordinance because the TransNet extension ordinance states that these funds should be used for providing improved senior transportation services, and capital service grants are providing those services. It's just through a contract or other arrangement. And then something else that is a good thing about allowing this type of grant type for SMG is that it could also allow the applicants or grantees to leverage the SMG funding against the 5310 funding source, which is the other funding source for the STGP. So that's the benefit of allowing this grant type. Another change that I wanted to highlight is we would like to remove the general specialized transportation information and referral services as an eligible competitive project type. Mobility management will still be an eligible project type under the STGP, but the program will prioritize travel training and localize client intake to reduce duplication with the information and referral service that the Consolidated Transportation Service Agency is already providing within the region and receives funding for. Localized client intake refers to the process providers use to screen and evaluate or onboard seniors into their transportation program. And the CTSA is designated by SANDAG to promote consolidation of social service transportation in the region. So that is why we implemented that change, so that we can make sure that information and referral is centralized with the CTSA and not duplicated by other providers. And now I'll get into the historical evaluation criteria proposed changes. So in order to create changes to the draft evaluation criteria for this cycle, we looked at historical criteria we've used over previous cycles and then updated the criteria in correspondence with our coordinated plan recommendations, which recommended to improve coordination and reduce specialized transportation duplication in the region. We also revised the criteria to streamline it based off of feedback that we received from last cycle's evaluators during the evaluation process and recent grant program assessments that we've presented to folks like you and the Transportation Committee. And the historical criteria and performance metrics for the SMG is available as attachment 1 if you'd like to review that. Key changes include eliminating environmental responsibility as a criterion and decreasing the weight of need and equity criterion so we can instead emphasize coordination and outreach. And lastly, we reduce the past performance adjustment scale weight. So now I'll dive deeper into the past performance adjustment criterion proposed changes. Our new scale looks much closer to a scale that we've used in prior cycles of the SMG, like in cycle 10, 11, or 12. And we propose that the scale be changed to -5 to 0, as opposed to what it was before, which was -15 to +5. The criterion would only be based off of actual versus proposed performance of existing SCGP grantees. So basically judging whether that grantee actually completed their proposed scope deliverables or not. And the scale will not provide any positive performance positive points for performance. And this will ensure that first-time SCGP applicants are not penalized while still incentivizing good SCGP performance from prior grantees. So next I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing, our call for projects process, I should say. So we're continuing to receive feedback on the draft call for projects throughout this summer, and then we plan to release the call in October of this year. That means that the anticipated deadline for applications would be January 2027. And then we anticipate providing award notifications in spring of 2027. And the senior mini grants will be awarded in summer of 2027, and then 5310s grants are awarded in fall of 2027. And that's just because senior mini grants are based off of SANDAG fiscal year, and the federal 5310 is based off of federal fiscal year. So we've already, done some stakeholder outreach for this process. We went to the Social Services Advisory Council, or STAC, to present the historical evaluation criteria that you all are reviewing today on June 23rd. Staff also hosted a webinar attended by over 50 specialized transportation stakeholders. And some of the feedback that we received were that need and equity and innovation need to be prioritized. They wanted us to emphasize specialized transportation user needs and express that providers could utilize emerging technologies to benefit the population and increase cost efficiency. They agreed that coordination was an important criteria, but they wanted more clear definitions of what coordination was. They also expressed concerns, or they wanted us to really make sure that in the call for projects, we're defining what coordination means for the CTSA versus what coordination means for smaller nonprofits or SCGP grantees. Lastly, they wanted to emphasize that they would like the call for projects to be more clear, providing applicant with guidance on what eligible expenses and projects types are for the SCGP. So we wanted to open this call up for discussion today from iTalk. And on the screen, I have some questions for you to help guide discussions for you to think about. Overall, we just want to know what you think of the draft criteria and the program changes that I've presented today. The first question we have for you to consider is, are there any evaluation criteria that the iTalk would like to see changed or weighted differently? Do the performance metrics on attachment 1 provide appropriate measurement of the success of senior mini grant projects? Are there any program changes that you would like staff to consider making? Those are 3 questions we would like you to consider before discussing today. And I want to say that this is a process. Like I said, we are getting feedback all throughout the summer, we have a online form. We recognize that it takes some time to read a call for projects and to understand what the program is or to gather your feedback thoughts on it. So we opened up an online form to collect written comments, and we have that open until September 1. So if you would like to provide comments or share with other stakeholders, please feel free. So that's it for my presentation today, and we'll open it up for public comments and future discussion. I want to thank you for your input in advance. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We have an email, grantsdistribution@sandag.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Clerk, are there any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We do have one public comment. Cesar Javier.
Thank you, SANDAG. This is a great university, and we are happy because SANDAG is planning a kind of specialized measure for, shall we say, people in their twilight years. And it is hitting our map, and we are happy because there is some kind of specialized program for member of the society we call seniors, like Cesar and Purita and Sir Mario and some other members here who I think let's accept the fact we're aging. Our cells are already starting to get defects, etc., etc. Thank you, SANDAG. It reminds us of a direct correlation with the services of the public health. It reminds us also of the direct correlation or a strong correlation with density of the population, like City of San Diego, like Chula Vista, Escondido, Oceanside, what else? Where is that place? Carlsbad. I think these are the sources of our planning to pinpoint where this heavy services, specialized one, City of San Diego, public health has a lot to say for this measure or program. Thank you, SANDAG. And therefore, the elected officials and their staff and the different agencies under the city, for example, they have 47 departments. And there is no dedicated department for health and human services, which is directly correlated with the program of SANDAG as far as seniors are concerned. How could we do this successfully if the show window, the City of San Diego, I hope there are representatives here from the City of San Diego, they can give you a reservoir of inputs to make this program successful, Sir Mario. And
Thank you. Your time has expired. That concludes the public comments.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any member comments on item 7? Go ahead, Sunny.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a few questions. The 7.1 million for 3 years, is that larger amount than previous? So it could last a little bit longer?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Do you remember what the last year?
Yeah, I
cycle?
actually have that for you. Cycle 13, we had 2.3 million.
Oh,
So
wow.
substantially.
Wow.
Yeah.
You should have
Bigger.
said that.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, so I have some questions about the criteria category, which was on one of the slides that you had. I understand that you moved or you reduced need and equity to 15 versus 20 points. But then you have this coordination and outreach, and you doubled that. Can you explain what coordination and outreach is and why it was doubled?
So this was something that came out of the coordinated plan. Something the coordinated plan found was there was a lot of duplication between the services that were being provided. And so what we're trying to strive for here is to reduce duplication and instead consolidate a little bit more. And some examples of coordination that we are still refining is perhaps allowing the grantees to do joint solicitations instead to, you know, for example, if we're going to start allowing the contract services, could they do a joint solicitation to get the same contractors and start working together? Perhaps, you know, getting MOUs with each other about partnerships too. So those are like examples that we're still refining, and we welcome any other ideas that you have.
Okay, so you're incentivizing people by joining forces or something like that instead of competition. They're basically providing the same service, but maybe at an expanded capacity or something.
Yes, and I think also coordinating on outreach too, you know, during meetings or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay. The other one is number 6, proposed performance measures. So what is that? You have the way it sounds, I don't know if they're proposing performance measures or they're meeting your proposed performance measure criteria. I'm not sure what that means.
Yes. So right now we have a standard performance measure, which is cost per trip. And that's something that would be evaluated, and that would, you know, that's again being refined. These are just drafts here, but we are thinking about, you know, having a standardized cost per trip and perhaps doing a scale for that. That's something we are considering. We're open to any input that you have on that. And then also seeing how well that they can promote effectiveness within their program. Like, are they continuing to refine their service throughout the grant term? That's something else that we hope to look for in this criteria. But if you have any other ideas, we're open to it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what about quality of their service? You know, is there a way, is that included in here? Is there a way to measure maybe in comments or reviews or things that they can do? These days, you get reviews on everything. So, you know, make sure the equipment is up to par, is safe, and, you know, just being able to get that type of feedback from their clients or from, you know, people that are using their services. Is that something that's possible?
Absolutely. I love it.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that feedback.
Thank you.
Okay, any other member comments? Okay, I've got a couple of comments. On the capital, that's also fleet vehicles?
No, the TransNet extension ordinance is very specific. It only says services.
Services, okay.
Yes, so it would not be eligible for capital equipment purchases.
Okay, and about how many, and this is probably going to be a wild guess, do you expect to receive a lot of applications? I mean, typically, is there a big submittal amount?
Yes, I would say we are always oversubscribed.
Okay.
Yes,
Good.
especially for the TransNet one.
Double?
Yeah, I would say double.
Yeah, because the dollar amounts this time, it's really, and then it's a longer duration, the 3 years. So if they don't get their application in, then that's, they got to wait another extra year. So
that's a great
I expect
point.
you're going to be really getting the applications in. So the outreach to them is very important to make sure that that they have to be ready. The January due date is very important for them, and so that they don't miss out on the opportunity. So I know right now with the fuel costs kind of being higher than what they've typically been, that's going to be very interesting to see how the the applications come in and how they're going to get creative to make their dollars stretch out. But okay, well, thank you. There's no other comments on that one? Okay, well, that was for discussion. Thank you very much, Ellie.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to item number 8, the annual selection of the ITALK chair and vice chair by Saba and Vanessa, and also Amberlyn. I want to make sure that you can provide some guidelines, rules, or bylaws on what these positions also have. So make sure we get that before we go through our item. And we do need an approval on this particular item. So with that, we can begin.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, ITALK members. Per the ITALK laws, the committee is required to select a chair and vice chair each year by majority vote. This selection takes place at the first regular meeting of the SANDAG fiscal year. In June 16, we provided an overview of the chair and vice chair selection process to help guide today's action. Via email to all the committee members, per the Brown Act, the committee members were BCC'd to avoid a quorum. This morning, we are asking the committee to approve the selection of a chair and vice chair for FY 2027. The newly selected chair will be expected to preside over the next regular scheduled ITALK meeting on September 9th, 2026. With that, I'll now turn it back over to Chair Rivera to lead the discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Clerk, are there any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We have one public comment. Cesar Javier.
Go ahead, Mr. Javier. And then after that, Amberlyn, you can give your response.
I cannot vote, nor my wife. We only pray that this leadership will continue because you have started it right. If I may say that, Chair Rivera, Vice Chair Ma'am, we have no complaint. You don't have to spend money. They are already there. They have started working. Let's see. What we wish is win the public trust. We know we are not angels, or else there is no need of governance. That's what we learned from our new church. Always new church, wishing something new. Solution to make earth as heaven. Mom, environmentalist biologist. We can make earth heaven. That's our wish and dream because we are created in the image of the Creator. You know that. We know that. And that's why we always say, under God, because we believe in that power. And we believe in your power. We believe in your intelligences. That's our wish. Let's do the right thing. Every moment in our life. That's what we wish from the public. As what you wish from us. Honest, openness, and you could raise your chin. Anywhere where you go, I'm doing my job. I'm only a human being. I'm not an angel. Ask forgiveness and you will be forgiven, like us. I asked the judge, sir, we just want justice, freedom, liberty, enjoyment of life. And you know what the judge says? The plaintiff also wants freedom. How would you reconcile that? Everybody wants happiness. But the thing is, no one is an angel to govern us. It's a matter of our, what is that word? Intrapersonal intelligence. This is our share today. It's difficult, Sir Mario. I know you're holding your forehead like me. How to produce something that makes
Thank you. Your time has expired. That concludes the public comments.
All right, thank you very much. Amberlyn?
Thank you, Chair. I would just reference Section 5 of the ITALK bylaws and reiterate a little bit of what Saba said, which is that your bylaws require that the ITALK will select its chair and vice chair by a majority vote for a term of 1 year. And I would just also note that there's nothing in the bylaws that prohibits a current chair or vice chair from serving consecutive terms should the voting threshold be met.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Saba, Vanessa, and Amberlyn. Okay, so let's open up the floor for discussion. Do we have any volunteers? Sunny, go ahead. Mike.
I would like to put my hat in to run as chair for next term.
All right, thank you. All right, Member Lorraine.
And I would like to put my name forward for vice chair position.
All right, any other nominees for either position? All right, seeing none, then can I have a motion to approve Member Sunny House as a new chair and Member Lorraine Alquist as vice chair?
Yes, yes.
Okay, Mr. Sanchez Stevens has made a motion, made the motion for new chair Sunny House and vice chair Alquist. Is there a second? I'll second that motion. All right. So with that, then clerk, please call the roll call and state where the motion passes.
Thank you, Chair. For Biology, Environmental Science, Lorraine Alquist.
Approve.
Contractor Construction and Municipal Public Finance and Budgeting are both absent. For Private Sector CEO, Sunny House.
Approve.
For Licensed Civil Traffic Engineer, Frank Rivera.
Approve.
For Real Estate Land Economics Right of Way, David Sanchez Stevens.
Approve.
Licensed engineer is absent today. That motion passes unanimously with those members present.
All right. Thank you. Congratulations.
If I may, I would like to thank Frank for his leadership and chairing this committee for the last year. You've always had a lot of informative comments and good experiences that you brought in from your service at the city. And we really appreciate your leadership and look forward to your continued support and good comments coming out. Thank you, Frank.
All right, thank you. Yeah, it's very interesting. I've enjoyed my time here, but it's a different view from the chair than off to the side. But thank you. All right, if there's no other comments, then we'll move on to item number 9, FY 2027.
Comment.
Oh, go ahead, David.
Did you ever use the gavel?
Yes, for public hearing.
Okay.
I think I have.
All right.
And this one, yes.
Yeah.
And one more time when I adjourn the meeting enthusiastically. Yes. Yeah. All right. So we'll move on to item number 9, the fiscal year 2027 TransNet Triennial Performance Audit, approval of topics and timeline by the ITALK TPA Subcommittee, Sunny House, Jacqueline Appleton Dean, and Tracy Drager.
Okay, on behalf of the subcommittee, I would like to just point out that share with you that we had a preliminary meeting with the consultant who is going to do the audit, and we presented the items that are areas of focus for the subcommittee and for ITALK since it was presented to ITALK last time. And we had a good comment from the consultant to separate what we consider, what are the considerations for our audit approach from our proposed focus areas. So the new attachment that you see basically reflects that. We are going to look at this as a risk-based approach, and there are 7 areas of focus that have been identified that the ITALK would like the consultants to look at. It seemed like they were in agreement that those are all elements that could be reviewed once the risk-based approach or the risk analysis is done. So I would like to move to approve these items for the consultant to start and initiate the triennial audit process for 2027. Are there any questions? We're happy to answer.
Okay, so any member comments? Oh, well, let me first see clerk. Are there any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We do have one public comment. Cesar Javier.
Oh, they're gone. They left.
If the Javiers aren't here, then there's no additional public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I'll then go back to, are there any member comments? Nope. All right. Okay, well, thank you, Sunny. So then we're asked to approve the draft topics, approach, and timeline for the FY 2027 TransNet performance, triennial performance audit.
I move to approve, so if there are any second.
Okay, motion made by House. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Alquist. Okay, so clerk, call for the roll call and state whether the motion passes.
Thank you. For biology, environmental science, Lorraine Alquist.
Approve.
Contractor construction and municipal public finance and budgeting are absent. For private sector CEO, Sunny House.
Approved.
For licensed civil traffic engineer, Frank Rivera.
Approve.
For real estate land economics right of way, David Santasteven.
Approve.
Licensed engineer is absent, and that motion does pass unanimously with those members present.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm going to call it, we're adjourned at 11:12 a.m.
There you go.